Hey everyone and welcome back to my channel. So in today's video I'm going to be doing my 1K Q&A. I still can't actually believe that I reached 1,000 subscribers on this channel. It feels like a really big number and my brain can't even cope. Like, I can't even picture how many people that is. But I say this all the time and I wanted to say it again. I do really appreciate everyone that watches my videos and that subscribes to my channel and that leaves me comments and things like that. It does genuinely like make my day when I see that someone has enjoyed a video that I've made. So yeah, I did want to start by saying thanks if you're watching this and if you've been supporting my channel for a while. I wanted to do something special to celebrate reaching 1,000 subscribers, and the only thing I could really think of that I actually wanted to do was a Q&A. So a couple of weeks ago I asked people for questions on Twitter, Instagram and on YouTube. I think those are the only places where I asked for questions, but honestly I was really nervous that I wouldn't get any questions, and I actually have a lot more than I was expecting, so I'm hoping I have time to go through them all. If I don't, then I will, I'm sure, at some point do another Q&A in the future. But yeah, I've tried to split these into 3 sections. So I had quite a lot of questions related to books because obviously this is a booktube channel. And then I had a few that were non-book related, that were more personal questions. And then I had a few that were booktube related. So yeah, there's going to be 3 sections. I'll leave timestamps in the description as well as a list of all the questions just in case you wanted to skip ahead at any point. But yeah, I guess I should stop rambling and get into the questions because like I said, there are a lot and I don't want to be sat here for hours even though that's probably what's going to happen, let's be honest. But the first question was, what is your favourite genre? And I have a few different favourite genres. I would say that at the moment the genre that I read the most is fantasy, but up until a couple of years ago I mostly read thrillers, and then occasionally I would pick up a romance book or a contemporary fiction or a literary fiction. But nowadays I think about 50% of the books that I read are fantasy books. The next question, which I think kind of links into the first, is what are your favourite book tropes? And honestly I find it easier to talk about the tropes that I don't like rather than the tropes that I do like. So I know that in romance books, for example, I don't really like friends to lovers and I don't really like second chance romances, but otherwise I'm pretty open-minded. I do like fake dating as a romance book trope, and I also like hate to love. In other genres it's a lot harder, but for example I really love political fantasies. If someone tells me that a fantasy has a lot of politics or some kind of complex political system, then chances are I'm going to want to read it. And the same with thrillers. If someone tells me that a thriller has a twist that I'm not going to see come in, then I will want to read that just to see if I do see it come in. The next question is, what is your favourite book cover? And I actually have it on display. I don't know if you can see it up here, but I bought this purely because of the cover. I don't usually buy books because of the covers, because typically I tend to buy more books on my Kindle, and so I don't really care what the cover looks like because I don't have to look at it. But I bought this in Waterstones, I think it was last year, because I mean look at the cover, it's beautiful. So I guess I would say, yeah, 6 Crimson Cranes this is, by Elizabeth Lim. This is one of the few books that I have bought purely because of the cover. Next question is, what is the most underrated book that you've read? And I think I actually did a video last year where I talked about some books that I really loved that don't have that many ratings on Goodreads. If I can find it I'll leave it linked in the cards and in the description, but I'm trying to remember what books actually were on that list. An author that I discovered quite recently is Kia Abdullah, who writes courtroom thrillers, and I've enjoyed all of the books that I've read from her so far. I think she has 3 books that are out at the moment and I gave them all 4 stars, but they only have like less than 1,000 ratings on Goodreads, so more people should pick up her books because I really enjoyed them. I would say actually check the trigger warnings beforehand, because from what I remember, they were quite dark and they were quite graphic. Next question is, what is your favourite book? And I honestly hate having to answer this question, mostly because whenever someone asks me, what is your favourite book? I always want to give a list of like 20 books. However, I was talking to someone recently about this, and if I have to give just one book, like one ultimate favourite book, I would probably say The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid, just because, yeah, I read it a few years ago, and even though it's quite a popular book on Bookstagram and BookTube, I hadn't really heard much about it. I'd seen the cover floating around and I thought it looked kind of interesting, so I went into it without any real expectations and it just blew me away. Like, I cried, I laughed, and I got to the end and I was convinced that Evelyn Hugo was a real person. On the opposite side of that, I also had a question on what is the worst book that I've ever read, and I do a video every year with my most disappointing books of the year. Not my worst books, but like the books that disappointed me, that I was expecting to like a lot more than I actually did. I very rarely actually actively hate a book. Even if I don't really enjoy a book, I can usually see something positive with it, or I can see why it's popular or why other people might enjoy it. There's only one book that I can think of that I've read in the last few years that I actually hated, and that was The Cows by Dawn O'Porter. This is a contemporary fiction, and I read another book by this author a few months before I read The Cows, and I really enjoyed it, so I'm glad that I read that book first before picking up The Cows, because I hated The Cows. It's about these three women, and one of the perspectives is about this woman whose sister passed away a few years ago from cancer. I've talked about this on my channel before, but I was diagnosed with cancer a few years ago, and so I can be quite sensitive to cancer representation in books, and I just found this one storyline in this one particular book really offensive, because yeah, it's about a woman who pretends to have cancer. Like, I don't think that's spoilery if anyone does ever want to pick up this book. I just found myself getting really angry as I was reading it, and I got to the end of the book and I just thought, yeah, hated it, absolutely hated it. So that's probably one that I wouldn't recommend. Otherwise though, because there are so many books out there that I want to read, I do tend to do quite a lot of research before I pick up a book, because I want to feel confident that I'm gonna love it. And I know that there are no guarantees, but I tend to look at what my friends have rated a particular book before I decide if I am gonna read it, because that just makes me feel, yeah, a little bit more confident that I'm not gonna be wasting my time. Next question is, are there any books that you would like to see turned into movies? And there are actually a couple that I can think of, but the ones that first sprung to mind were Casey McQuiston's books, so Red, White and Royal Blue and One Last Stop. I think actually One Last Stop would probably make the better film, or the more interesting film, because this has that sci-fi twist. But yeah, this is a sapphic romance, for anyone who doesn't know, about a woman called August who develops a crush on a girl called Jane, who turns out to be displaced in time from the 1970s. And I really enjoyed this book. I think it did drag a little bit in places. It was a little bit too long, but as I was reading it, I could imagine it working really well as a movie. So I think that, yeah, One Last Stop is probably the book that I would choose for this answer. Next question is, what is your favourite read or your favourite author that you've discovered because of BookTube? And I think I'm actually gonna have to go for Leigh Bardugo with this one. So I read the Shadow and Bone trilogy back, I think about 2 years ago now, and this is the series that got me back into reading fantasy. I know that I probably wouldn't enjoy this series as much if I was to read it now for the first time, because I have read a lot of fantasy books since this that I think are objectively better. Yeah, I think I picked up this series because I'd seen so much hype on BookTube, and it is what got me back into reading fantasy, and so it will always have that special place in my brain or in my heart. I actually had had quite a lot of questions around what were my favourite childhood books, and I was thinking I might do a video about this where I talk through my favourite books from when I was a kid. Let me know in the comments if that's something that you'd be interested in. I'm pretty sure that I still own most of my favourite childhood books, but they're all in the loft, so I'm going to have to dig them out. But off the top of my head, I really liked the Goosebumps books. Me and my sister had like quite a lot of those. I also really liked Roald Dahl's books. Fantastic Mr. Fox, I think, was probably my favourite. I also really liked the Alex Rider series by Anthony Horowitz, and then the Edge Chronicles series by Paul Stewart and Chris Riddell. Okay, so those are all the book related questions. I'm now going to move on to some non-book related questions, and the first question that I have on my list is what is your favourite food? And I also had a question on what is my favourite snack, so I'll try and answer them both together. But favourite food is definitely pizza. I'm a vegetarian. I probably should have started by saying that. So I don't eat meat, but I do have dairy in small doses because I find that if I have too much dairy then it makes my skin break out. But pizza is probably my favourite food, or a good vegetarian lasagna. Something like that. In terms of my favourite snack, I really love stuff on toast. So like beans on toast, or cheese on toast, or avocado on toast, or my personal favourite, which sounds a little bit weird, but like, trust me on this, peanut butter and Marmite on toast. No one ever believes me, but it actually tastes really, really good. Next question is, do you have any hobbies outside of reading? And I used to play hockey up until a few years ago, which I really, really enjoyed, but I, haven't played in years, and I would like to get back into it. It's just that my fitness isn't great at the moment, so I feel like I have to build up to it. Otherwise though, I don't really have anything that I would say is a hobby. Like, I work in the week 5 days a week, and then on the evenings I'm usually doing YouTube stuff or I'm reading, and then on the weekends I like to see friends or family, so I don't really have a lot of spare time to do other stuff, which makes me sound kind of boring, but honestly I am. Next question is, which countries would you like to travel to? And top of my list is definitely New Zealand, because I am a huge Lord of the Rings fan, and I love the idea of being able to do a sort of road trip to see all of the filming locations. I think that would just be amazing. And actually at the start of lockdown in 2020, I spent a lot of time watching travel vlogs for New Zealand, and I started planning out this trip, not just in my mind, like I actually started planning out a trip that I would like to do, and I was trying to work out how much time I would need to see everything that I wanted to see. So yeah, hopefully at some point in the future it'll actually happen, but obviously with the pandemic it's a lot harder to travel at the moment, and I haven't actually left the country in over 2 years. I would like to go away somewhere this summer, maybe somewhere like Croatia. I think would probably be top of my list within Europe, because again I really want to see the filming locations from Game of Thrones, and I know that they filmed quite a lot of that in Dubrovnik. Okay, so in this next section I'm going to go through some booktube related questions, and I've just noticed that my camera battery is about to die, so I'm going to try and answer these quite quickly. But the first question is, what are your favourite videos to film? And I prefer filming vlogs over sit-down videos like this, mostly because I find it more convenient to film for say 5-10 minutes on an evening or on my lunch break, and then edit those clips together, rather than sit down for like hours at a time and just talk at camera, because I am getting old and my back hurts. My least favourite videos to film are wrap-ups, and I don't know if anyone's actually noticed, but I decided to stop doing wrap-ups at the end of last year. I think the last time I did a monthly wrap-up was in November, because I realised that I just wasn't enjoying doing them, and so instead I've decided to do quarterly wrap-ups instead, where I just talk through like my favourite books of the quarter. So actually the first video of my quarterly wrap-ups should be live at the end of March or the start of April, so if you're interested in that, then that should be live in a few weeks. I might actually film it this weekend. I also had a question on how do I come up with content ideas, and honestly I don't really know. I think because I watch a lot of booktube videos, sometimes I'll see someone do, for example, a themed reading vlog, and I'll think, oh, I really like that idea, why don't I do something similar but change it slightly? So I don't like to copy people directly unless it's like quite a broad video idea, but quite often I do take inspiration from other booktubers and I use that to, I guess, inspire my content. Does that make sense? Another question I had was, what is my favourite aspect of running a booktube channel? And I think for me, what I really love is seeing an idea come to life and seeing the finished product. So sometimes I'll have an idea for a video, but I won't actually get round to doing it until months later. And so I have that period of time where I'm excited about that idea. And so actually seeing how it turns out and feeling proud of it, I really, really love that feeling. And especially if other people like it too, like if that video gets a lot of views and a lot of comments, then yeah, it makes it all feel worthwhile. In general though, I do just love being part of the online book community and just having people that I can talk to about books, because sometimes in my personal life, I feel like my friends and my family get a little bit bored of me just talking about books all the time. Whereas when I talk to booktube friends, I know that they're going to share that enthusiasm. And so yeah, it makes me happy. Like, I think that joining booktube was one of the best things that I could have done, because at the time that I joined booktube, I was going through some, you know, like some stuff. Like, I was struggling a lot with my mental health, and so finding this community, it really meant a lot to me. The final question, which I think is actually quite a nice one to end on, is who are some of your favourite booktubers? And I'm gonna actually leave a list in the description of this video, because I know that if I start talking, then I'm gonna miss people. But there are a lot of booktubers that I watch, and I watch different booktubers for different genres. So for example, one of my favourite fantasy booktubers is Abby from Abby Salter. I think because we started around the same time, like I'm pretty sure that I've watched every single video that Abby has ever done, other than those that have had spoilers. I also really love Nat's channel, so Nat from Nerdy Nat Reads. She reads a lot of thrillers and romance occasionally, and also fantasy occasionally, but I feel like we have quite a similar taste in thrillers, and so I really trust her recommendations there. I was actually thinking maybe of doing a video specifically with a booktuber recommendation, so let me know again in the comments if that is something that you'd be interested in. Otherwise though, that does bring me to the end of the video, so thanks for watching. If you've made it this far, let me know in the comments if there's any other questions that you'd like to ask. I think I've missed quite a few, so I am really sorry. I've tried to get through as many as I can, but feel free to ask any other questions in the comments if you would like, and I will answer them. But yeah, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, and click subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you next time. Bye!